The explanation of the accident kept changing. The sergeant felt the complaining and family lacked credibility when they told her they didn't know how it happened. All questioning was within the proper scope of police investigation, seeing how they were in an area on Sunday afternoon after business hours. The complaint here?
Yes.
Sam, do you have anything to add?
There are a lot of some details that are not in from what you've read, so I don't want to add anything because there are a few inconsistencies. Yeah, so I don't know why. I thought it was really investigated adequately by the detective who was taking charge of it. I personally had a full faith in what was going on. I concur that the police could not see what was happening because it was between me and the particular sergeant. He pulled me aside, not from where everybody else was. So when he did that, it was me and him. So it is true that the other police officers could not see what was happening. When I asked the sergeant if he could call the police officers to come and witness what he was telling me, he refused. So the burden falls on me to prove that what he was telling me is true or not. And that's all I can say. I just came out of curiosity to see what really could happen here, because am I surprised? I am not, because this kind of things go on, and it's unfortunate, that it will come from senior police officer asking my immigration status. I'm involved in an accident. The other police officers who came earlier on were very courteous, took care, asked if we were checked to see if everybody was okay. Fire department, I called the police myself, and the sergeant showed up much later, when everything was going on. And none of the police officers who showed up had any problem with my immigration status or anything else, but apart from the fact that we were either okay or what happened in the accident. So when he came, and his main focus was of a threatening nature regarding my citizenship, whether I was why my wife is, when they came into the country, stuff like that, I felt that was really out of his line of duty, and I mentioned that to him. I asked him if the laws in Arizona are being applied here, and why was he asking me that? I'm involved in an accident, everybody's shaken, and he's asking about whether I'm a citizen. When did I come into the country? What visas are held before? Went to my daughter, my 13-year-old daughter, took her on the side, scared the little girl, him asking her, is your father a citizen? When did you people come into this country? Took my wife aside, did the same, and completely nothing to do with the accident. The accident occurred in my neighborhood. I explained how we were in that neighborhood. Dropped our son who was playing soccer. I just bought a new vehicle. This is a vehicle that I had for less than a month. Just taking a drive around the neighborhood, and the accident happened. And that was it, So my purpose is, do I need any remedy? I do not. This is everyday harassment people of color go through. And I'm not surprised that it happened, but I'd like it probably to be like a teaching moment to the men and women who serve in uniform, the police, I have a great respect for police officers, but that day my little girl was very terrified of the police. And I personally felt that I was being intimidated and harassed by that particular sergeant. It was only one police officer, by the way. It's not all of them. And given, if I had a chance, I could pick him out. I could mention names. But I am not going there. I would just like, if possible, to ask the board to have the police be sensitive. Stuff like that. I know, yes, I'm an immigrant. Many people are. I know I don't speak good English, but that should not be used against me.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
I think you speak good English.
Okay.
Sir?
You speak good English. I understood.
Oh, thank you.
You have an accent, but it's fine. It doesn't seem to be a dispute that the sergeant said this. The sergeant is saying it. Really? Well, I'll comment on what occurred. There was an automobile accident. The investigation of the automobile accident came to some inconsistencies as to who's operating the automobile. The questions that were asked of the occupants of the vehicle and Mr. Atieno regarding who was driving and how it occurred. When the sergeant arrived, the sergeant was trying to get answers to some of the evidence that was displayed at the scene, try to put the accident report together. This particular target officer, without giving too many identifying characteristics, has a familiarity with the immigration process through his family structure. What he was looking to do is try to find some common ground, which is stated in the report, between himself and the persons he was talking to. When we looked into his line of questioning, what was important to us was whether or not there was any investigation into the immigration status of any persons that were on the scene there. This was not an immigration issue. We didn't look at any of that, which lent more credibility to what the sergeant was telling us as far as why he was trying to do that. That's a common technique when you interview somebody, try to find common ground with them, especially after that incidents. Try to bond with them, to have them relate to you and answer your questions. And that was at the heart of what the sergeant was talking to him. Simply because he's familiar with that process, again, through his family structure.
But it went as far as him actually pulling out his green card. I mean, this wasn't just a conversation. I mean, he produced his papers. He seems to go fairly down that path.
He did ask about those, but there's no report done. The accident report was completed in the proper manner. There's no follow-up made to immigration. He wasn't looking to investigate those things. There's nothing regarding that. And he didn't go off that diverted path to look for those things. We looked at that.
But there was some talk as to
There was talk about
that he was robbing something.
well, there was that part of it as far as what the follow-up was. Because of the inconsistencies, it's hard to explain why someone is driving through that area, an area that experiences a high number of burglaries and businesses that are closed on the weekends. So certainly that was part of what the officers on the scene were following up on. His lieutenant also from another spoke.
Yeah, I rather felt that more of it, especially was whether it was smoking or
time he was exonerated, but it did occur. It did have such a
Right, and the difference between the two is it occurred, the allegations of misconduct, and when we sustain a complaint, we're sustaining misconduct on the part of the officer. We're looking at this and saying, yes, it happened, but is it misconduct? Does it rise to the level of misconduct? And from his explanation of the events of why he did what he did, and his familiarity with those that immigrated to the country and are here illegally, it doesn't ring true that he did it inappropriately or as some form of misconduct.
Just saying, show me my paper, show me your papers is, seems.
As the commander stated, the officer in question has had a very intimate familiarity with immigration laws. So, as an attempt to get to establish some sort of common ground or consensus amongst everyone that was involved in the accident, that was the subject he used. It wasn't with the intent to harass him, because the officer, like I said, that was questioning him at the time. He knew all about that stuff. So if he could ask them something that had that type of detail involved in the subject, and then they could all agree on it, at least they all came to that consensus. Because the gist of it was, no one was giving the same story about the accident or about anything else. And he came later, as Mr. Altiano stated, he came later and didn't know what was really going on. He asked all the officers on the scene that were investigating the accident, and they were just like, we're getting different things from everyone. So took him aside and established that as the subject to speak about, and then he went to everyone else and asked about that to see if he could get a consensus about something. Anybody have any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
The common standards is OPS has exonerated where the accident provided the basis for the complaint occurred. But the review shows that such acts were proper and the complaint alleges his family was questioned about his immigration status after having been involved in an auto accident. The sergeant responded to the scene of an auto accident and interviewed well on the road, continued through a wooded area for a significant distance, then entered the roadway and continued into a brick building. Prior to the sergeant's arrival, officers on the scene were unable to obtain an explanation from the members of the family as to what caused the accident. Any reasonable person would find the lack of any explanation from the occupants of the vehicle that had just been involved in such a traumatic accident highly suspicious and possibly deceptive. If an effort to try to establish some sort of common ground between all occupants of the vehicle and with the intent of conducting an investigation of an unexplained auto accident possibly involving hundreds of thousands of dollars in private property damage, the sergeant stated he utilized the issue of citizenship to achieve some sort of consensus between all members of the family. The sergeant stated his questioning had nothing to do with the color, accent, and national origin of the family. The lieutenant that responded stated due to the continued inconsistencies about the event from the complaint and his family, he felt the sergeant's line of questioning would be within the proper scope of police investigation. The sergeant was also faced with the secondary concern that there was perhaps other criminal activity afoot in the light of the fact that the complainant or any other family member could give any reasonable explanation of why they were in an office complex parking lot on a Sunday afternoon after business hours. Individuals at the scene of the incident were interviewed, including Albany Fire Department personnel, Albany Police Department personnel, and the complainant's family members, all stating that they noticed no hostile or unprofessional behavior exhibited by the sergeant while he was speaking to the complainant and his family.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Dillon, you want to say anything? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Aye.
Aye.
And my reason for being against it is
sergeant say he was asking for papers? I don't know his statement.
The sergeant admitted that he asked
About immigration status.
Immigration status. The complainant said that he asked for his papers.
I handed the, he insisted, after a long time, I had to give him my papers. He literally looked at the papers and he asked, and he looked, like the detective says, he knows about immigration. He looked at the visa, and then he said, what visa did you have before this? So he must have known. What visa? I told him. Apparently, he kept on asking again. You know. I told him I had an F1 before I had an H1B. Then I have this one. So he was insistent. So, you know, and about my just to correct something here, they put I don't know where the inconsistencies are coming from. Nobody is clear about that. They just say there were inconsistencies. But my son, who was with me in the car, they thought that he was the one driving. So they put him in the car and tested to see if he was the one driving. Apparently, he was not, because he's taller than me and he's 16 years old. So the focus was on him that he could be the one.
It takes 5 votes for the board to approve it. And it's 3-2. So,
My reason very much so similar to Jim, and I also think that I just think that there are a number of things that should be addressed in this. I have really difficulty that somebody goes. I do question whether the kind of damage I would like to see what that was, just to see how long off the road we went, sir. I think that is some question. I was an officer, and the person who's driving is experienced like yourself, I presume. You put on brakes and stop at some particular point. I do understand that if it's a child, then they may panic and they may go on a longer time. But I also